Hey, what's going on, guys? Mackenzie Long here. So Marlen and I don't know if you know or not, but we just got married. We just got back from a month of getting married and our honeymoon in the Dominican Republic, and I learned so much. And if you're planning on maybe going to the Dominican Republic or you want to travel somewhere in the Caribbean or down into that area, I want to give you a little bit of information about the Dominican Republic, some of the things that we liked and some of the things that we didn't like, to maybe help you make some decisions on your trip. And if you don't know me and you're wondering why the heck we would spend a month in the Dominican Republic outside of obviously getting married and our honeymoon, Marlen and I run a financial services company together. I've been doing it for over 9 years, where we teach people how money works. It's something that's not really taught in schools, so it means most people are financially illiterate, meaning they make lots of mistakes when it comes to money, and oftentimes they're being taken advantage of. And the cost of this is that most Americans will make millions of dollars, 1.5, maybe $2 million in their lifetime. However, the vast majority of them will come to a point in their life when they're ready to stop working, and all they really have to their name is their pockets turned inside out, maybe a cabinet full of medicine, and that's really all they have to look forward to in their future. And having worked in this space for a long time, it's really become our passion to help people get out of that financial struggle for brothers and sisters who are struggling with those things, which is most Americans. And it really starts with financial education. And the reason why I bring that up is now that we've recruited hundreds of agents and now thousands of clients and students, is that you get a great perspective into people's lives when you work with that many people. And one of the biggest things that I've found, and having lots of clients and discussing some of their financial situations and the things they want to do in their life, and maybe some regrets a lot of times people will talk about when it comes to money or things that they've done in their marriage. One of the biggest challenges I see, or one of the biggest regrets that we find, is that most times people are regretting that they never really got a chance to take their honeymoon. I know lots of people who either never got married because they could never really afford it, or they didn't really go on their honeymoon because they couldn't afford it, or they just didn't do it in the way that they wanted to, and now it's 5, 10, 15 years later, and they still haven't really got around to it. So that's why we were doing a month in the Dominican Republic, and it was really because we wanted it to be special for us. We wanted to make sure that we got away, that we got to spend a lot of time together, and think about and plan what we want to do really for the rest of our life. That we could come together as two individuals and go through this process and this ritual and come out as one and have a game plan. And that was another thing that I had really found working with people, is that most people, even when they get married, and oftentimes as I work with them years later, is they've never sat down with their spouse and actually figured what they wanted out of life. So no wonder why so many couples separate, because they both have ideas of what they want to do. However, they never really talk to each other, so they kind of end up heading towards the direction they want without ever having that conversation with the other one. So long story short, let's get back to the Dominican Republic. But that was why we were there, and these were some of the things that we were trying to accomplish. And there will be an entirely different video about that. So I'm going to shut up now and actually get back on topic. Understanding about the Dominican Republic, quick history lesson if you don't know. In 1942, it was discovered by Christopher Columbus. He was obviously discovering a lot of other islands and land masses in this area. Cuba, Puerto Rico, the United States, a lot of those he had actually discovered around the same time. But what's interesting is this area that we were very close to, we stayed up closer to Puerto Plata, which we'll talk a little bit later. I'll put a map up there for you as well. But this area that was colonized was really the first area that was colonized in the Americas. And apparently a lot of the discovery that came into the United States was based out of this particular area. And Christopher Columbus, not surprisingly at all, said that this was the most beautiful island that human eyes had ever seen. Now this island is fairly decent size, but it's also split with another country, Haiti, and they have not always harmoniously been split. So there are some tensions between the two countries. Haiti's going through all kinds of stuff right now, and I think they have been for a long time. But the Dominican Republic side is really what we're talking about, and I want to give you some of our experiences and some of the things that we did. And a little bit more going into the agriculture and as far as food and those kinds of things go, it's really interesting because the Dominican Republic is almost entirely self-sustained. Even with all of the hotels and resorts that are on the island, everything is basically farmed from in-house. It's in the high 90%, from the vegetables to the fruits to the animals to all of those things are made directly on the island. And surprisingly enough, almost everything is organic. They do have a huge focus on things like coffee and sugar and chocolate, tobacco. Those kinds of things are obviously grow very well here. A lot of rice, a lot of vegetables. One of the things that was a little surprising to me was even though they produce so much chocolate, you will almost not find any chocolate bars anywhere around, not like I would expect to. You would think there would be lots of chocolate production. They would have chocolate all over the place. Maybe they grow more of the beans and actually sell them so other countries can make the chocolate. You did find some, but not really what I expected to. You do find a lot of cigars, a lot of rum, a lot of those types of things. And accompanying some of the most beautiful beaches in the world, I'll put some of my pictures up through this as well so you get other entertainment versus just listening to me. But some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. On top of that, I found the people to be very respectful, to be very gracious. We didn't have any kind of challenges. I actually felt safer than when I headed to Mexico. And it was very interesting to find out there's a mix of many different cultures. You'll see certain areas. We had our wedding actually in Sosua, and it was built by this Italian gentleman. So there were lots of Italians on the island. We saw lots of German tourists, lots and lots of people from Canada, as many Americans, but there were also a lot of Argentinians. So especially places that people spoke Spanish, they felt very comfortable coming to this area. As I talked to a lot of the people that were around, they actually felt good. They liked having the more touristy areas. There was just a couple new areas that are ports for some of the cruise ships to be able to come in. And they felt like, when I was talking to the people, they felt like it was actually a benefit to their society having more tourists come in. It opened up a lot of jobs, had opened up a lot more opportunities for people who actually live there. The average income in the Dominican Republic is about $200 or $300 per month, US dollar, which means you'll often see they live in very poor condition. Definitely better than their neighbors in Cuba. They have pretty consistent running water and electricity, but it seems like a very interesting dynamic because of how much little money they make. You would think that a lot of things in that area would be cheap. However, they're really pretty expensive. Gas is still $5, $6 a gallon. Cars, even though they're getting them used, are going to be $10,000. If you want to buy a pretty nice house over there, you're talking probably $140,000 for a pretty nice property. So as you can imagine, if you're making $250 to $300 a month, it seems like a big discrepancy between what actual cost of living is and then also being able to provide for yourself with your job. Now, I did notice, and what you'll see a lot is that most people have other side hustles that they're doing, whether they're selling stuff on the street, they're selling fruits and vegetables, maybe they have some kind of entrepreneurship thing that they're doing, maybe they sell excursions or whatever it might be that they can do to earn additional income. And with how much they make, they almost have to. So you'll see a lot of that as you're driving down the street. People will start walking in the middle trying to sell whatever it is their knickknacks are, umbrellas or toys that they've found or kites or whatever it might be, as they're trying to earn additional income. Their culture seemed to be very interesting. I felt a lot like I was in the US, but maybe a little bit more divided even than that. There were quite a few people who kind of were sitting out on their balconies all day and kind of very relaxed. And then there was very much the hustle group, the people that are talking about jobs and they have multiple sources of income. They were trying to find different ways to make more money, in that you would drive through certain towns and it was much more laid back. And then you'd get into the cities and it was very hustle and bustle, just like you would expect to see in any other city. And while this was interesting to see, it also makes for a very unique place to be able to visit because cost of labor is so inexpensive. These properties were absolutely gorgeous. They were very well maintained. They were very, very clean because obviously if you're not having to pay that much money for people to maintain them and you have other people coming from other countries to be able to stay in them, paying the normal rate that they would for a resort, it probably allows for a lot of extra for them to be able to hire people to come in and make sure everything stays very clean. Although being able to speak Spanish is not a requirement, and they will oftentimes go out of their way to figure out what you're doing or have menus in multiple languages, I saw that a lot. It is probably helpful if you do speak Spanish. Obviously, I'm working on my Spanish, poquito español, but that's something that oftentimes I can understand what's going on in conversation, but to be able to communicate back and forth was a little bit more difficult. So it was an interesting dynamic when they saw me coming, and then Marlen was with me and said she was from Cuba. The dynamic of the relationship and the conversation we had kind of changed So there's definitely that perspective that if they know you're from another country, they will probably mark up their prices a little bit, or at least start higher if you're going to get into the negotiation process with them. So be aware of that as well, versus if you speak Spanish and you're very familiar with the language, they will probably not try to up their prices as much. And as we come into the safety aspect, I felt very safe in the Dominican Republic. Now, outside of driving, okay, because they drive like maniacs. They have 2 lanes, literally 1 lane each way with a yellow divided line in the middle. But to them, it's really 5 or 6, maybe 7 lanes where you have the cars that are passing each other, and oftentimes going 3 lanes wide, and you'll see people passing both on the freeway and in the street, in the middle of the road, and oncoming traffic. And they seem to be very good about not actually having accidents for the way that they drive. But then you also have to be concerned with the people that are on their motorcycles, which are going back and forth all the time and not always on the right side of the road or the correct side of the road. And then you also have the pedestrian traffic and anything else that might want to be walking in the road, as far as dogs or cows or horses or just about anything else you might find in the street. And most of the roads were pretty good. However, you will find quite a few areas that have some pretty massive potholes that I don't know if your car would survive if you hit it. When we were going to some of the different resorts, we did find that. But overall, I felt very safe in the Dominican Republic. And as I said earlier, probably maybe even a little bit safer than when I go to Mexico. And people seem to be pretty shocked when I tell them that. But we also weren't looking for trouble or going into weird areas. Living in Las Vegas, there are weird areas, even in Las Vegas, that I would not want to walk or have Marlen walk down in the middle of the night. So just be understanding of that and don't go into weird places that you don't know. Do more of the stuff during the daytime. Obviously, if you're looking for a nightlife, that might be a little bit different. Maybe do a little bit more at your hotel or close to it. That way you don't have to worry about as much of that. And when we were walking through Puerto Plata, there might be differences in different places, but there was almost a armed security guard or somebody with the tourist patrol that was on almost every other block. So we felt very safe as far as that goes. Didn't have any weird incidents. We are very aware when we're doing things, and we don't linger in a lot of areas or go into places we don't know. We were generally headed to a area, whether we were walking or driving. We didn't linger in strange places, and there were oftentimes lots of other people around as well. And we walked that for quite a few miles and didn't have any issues whatsoever. You will have people that come up to you and want to try to pull you into their store or ask you to buy something or whatever it might be. And they have some pretty awesome stuff. It was the first place that I've ever had sweet potato ice cream, which was actually really good, surprisingly. So you will be surprised if you go into a lot of those shops with some of the very unique things that they have that you probably won't find really anywhere else in the world. So that kind of takes us into purchasing things. And this was very interesting in the Dominican Republic. I've never felt like there were discrepancies like this before. But if you're going to travel to the Dominican Republic, you're going to want to understand some of the pricing and how it works. And you're going to have to be a little bit resourceful. Otherwise, it's very easy to spend way too much on things just because you're kind of going off of what your hotel says or what they want to provide for you. So just to give you an idea, it was about a 15-minute drive from the airport to our resort. The resort wanted $90 each way $90 per person to go both ways, so $180 for about a 15-minute drive. I thought that was a little bit excessive. That's in US dollars. Versus if you took a taxi, it was about $45 each way, which is about $90, half the cost. But then if you looked into an Uber, the Uber said it was about $7. So each way, which would be about $15. Now, one thing that's interesting about taking Uber is the price that you see on Uber is never really the price. They basically use the app to get the client, and then they tell you it's going to be about double of what it actually is. And to be honest with you, that is actually fair. When the cost of gas is still $5 or $6, and you're paying $15 to go into the city, and it's a 15 or 20-minute drive, to me, I felt that was still pretty fair. That was about what I would pay here in Las Vegas. So we did pay that. and it was still saving about $30 each way compared to taking a taxi. What's interesting though is kind of what happened in Vegas. They don't want the Ubers coming in to where the taxis are. So they might not be able to take you all the way to your resort, or they might not be able to pick you up at your resort. The place that we stayed at was kind of on a big plot of land where it had access that was blocked, so if it was only if you were going into the resort you could actually get there. Otherwise it was maybe a quarter-mile walk to get out to the actual street. So some of the times if we wanted to take an Uber, we had to actually walk out to the street to meet the guy, because if they knew he was Uber, they were not going to let him into the facility, because I think there's probably a mix between the taxis and the resorts. I don't know if they have something in cahoots, but it sure as heck felt like it, because as soon as you were walking out, if they found you were taking an Uber, they kind of looked at you funny the rest of your trip, which I guess that's normal, that's fine, but you will save a lot of money taking Ubers. And basically what we did is we had one guy that we really liked, and we just kept him almost the whole trip. So we got his phone, and anytime we wanted to go somewhere a day or two in advance, maybe we would let him know, and he would spend the day taking us around doing whatever it is that we wanted to do. And I highly recommend doing that if you have a guy that's good as well. So getting back to purchasing things, it's almost like that with everything. You can go into two stores and they have the almost identical products, and one is charging quite a bit more and one is charging 20 or 30% less. And you'll also find, what I thought was interesting is they have some that are actual like companies, and the price is the price. They don't negotiate, they have the price on everything, and whatever it is, they have to ring it up through their cashier, their stand, and they're not going to change the price regardless of how much you try to negotiate or how much you buy. Now the vast majority of the rest of it is small business, and so they're willing to negotiate on their prices. They're probably going to start a little bit high and work things down a little bit. We had some great experiences. We had some weird experiences where somebody offered us a painting for like $200 US, and then we went to somebody next door and he was offering us 3 paintings for like $48. So there was a huge discrepancy in price for a lot of things. So be willing to walk away, whether it's an Uber or a taxi or something you want to buy in a store, be willing to walk away and look for it somewhere else. You can always keep that place in mind and come back and buy it again later if you want. And what's also interesting is those prices kind of vary. There's like their intro price if you don't live in the Dominican, and then there's like the I like you price and the I don't like you price. So being nice did help. Speaking the language kind of helped a little bit too. Marlen was able to finagle a lot of things. And once they realize kind of what you're doing and that you're kind of cool, they will oftentimes give you discounts, even sometimes after you set the price. If you're really cool with them, we've had oftentimes taken an extra $20 off an excursion or $20 off a rental car because we were working with them and we were pretty cool and we were staying in contact with them. So I thought that was kind of as well. Or we would buy something and they would give us some free stuff on our way out as well. So one more note as we're talking about purchasing. It's very interesting that even going from resort to resort, they will have almost the same exact thing, but the prices will be astronomically different. We were looking at one item and it was $3 or $4 in one store, US, and we go to the store next, and then we go to something that's owned by the same company and it was $25 in the next store. So you really just don't know what you're going to find. My biggest note here would be don't get your heart set on something. If it feels pretty expensive for where you're from, it's probably expensive for where they are, and they might just not know. Maybe they're pricing it, and go to a couple other stores nearby and you'll probably find it for half or a quarter of the price. And also let's talk about exchanging money. So there are oftentimes going to be places around your hotel or sometimes at your hotel. At your hotel will probably be the best bet. You can usually Google what the exchange rate is. When we went, it was $1 to about 54 pesos, which was pretty good, but you would oftentimes buy something, let's say it was 200 pesos, they would calculate it as 50 pesos per dollar. So you might pay $4, which isn't really a big deal. However, when you start getting into bigger purchases, it can make a $20 or a $30 difference depending on how they're calculating it. So it might be a good idea to convert some of it into pesos, or to ask them beforehand before you purchase something. Let's say we were doing our rental car. We asked them how many pesos it was and how many dollars it was. And then we kind of made the calculations for ourselves. We saved about $30 converting the pesos at $54 and then paying it that way. And one last note I want to make, just because I want to put this out there to save people their time, there are lots of travel clubs. If you're going to any of the hotels, you're probably going to be approached by a Lifestyle or a Club this or a Viva that or something or other, where they want you to come into one of their presentations. Now, some of these are very timeshare-ish, some of them are a little bit different, but the overall arching concept is they want you to come to a presentation. They're going to maybe wine and dine you a little bit, maybe give you some t-shirts, and then they're going to want to spend a lot of time going through this. And we did do one of these because in the beginning we had lots of time. One of the gentlemen that we had made friends with came up to us and was showing us some of the pictures of this resort, said, hey, come over with us, it's about 60 minutes. Somebody else had mentioned about 90 minutes. And basically you could see the resort that they had, and they would give you VIP passes, because if you want to go down to certain beaches or be in certain areas or stay at certain properties, you would basically have to pay for a day pass to go do that. So we thought, okay, cool, we got plenty of time, we're here for a month, we can go do that. And we ended up spending 4 hours traveling around this property, and in about 2 hours we started getting kind of frustrated, and he was hurrying up because he had to make all of these stops all over this different property. I won't mention any names, Lifestyle, and it was a massive property, and it felt like we wasted almost an entire day. Now, if you like real estate, if you like going to things like that for some reason because you're weird, then definitely go do that. I think that maybe if you were at a place that wasn't all inclusive and they were going to give you food for the day and allow you to hang out on their beautiful beach, then okay, cool, it might be worth it for you. However, we were already at an all-inclusive, and we were at one of the best beaches on the entire island. So now, one piece of advice as we kind of wrap this up is you're going to probably run into a bunch of travel clubs, and some of these are very timeshare-ish, some of them are kind of a little bit different, but kind of the general idea. They're going to maybe wine and dine you a little bit. They'll give you free breakfast or lunch or dinner, or maybe some t-shirts or some to-go things, some Mama Wana or whatever it is when you're in the country. And I just want you to be prepared for that. And if you want to go, definitely go check it out. We got approached by a couple. The one that we did end up going to was by Lifestyle, which we really ended up doing because I kind of became friends with one of the guys up front, and so we kind of became a little bit buddy-buddy, and after a day or two, he finally approached us and said we should go. He had some pictures on his phone. It looked absolutely beautiful, said you could hang out in the VIP areas, and it was just going to be a relaxing day. You spend maybe 60 minutes in a presentation, and then the rest of the day you can hang out on the resort and get food and be on the VIP areas and the beach and that kind of stuff. And so we were like, okay, cool, I'd like to check out some other areas. I am into real estate. I like a lot of those different aspects. I like seeing beautiful things. So we said, okay, what the heck, we'll go. We were kind of recovering from the wedding anyway, so we kind of wanted a chill day, something where we could just go and relax. What the heck, we'll sacrifice 60 minutes to have our day over there at a beautiful resort. And needless to say, as you can probably already tell, that is not what happened at all. It was about 4 hours. After about 2.5 hours, we were fairly frustrated, and we were saying, hey, you guys had 60 to 90 minutes, and now we're going on almost 3 hours, and we still aren't even at the negotiation phase. And it took about another hour to get us back because he had to make all of these different stops in this Lifestyle event, in this Lifestyle resort, which was absolutely massive. And it was beautiful. If you like real estate, or you're just weird and you like timeshare things and you want to go see a presentation, go do it. But just know it's going to take longer than they say, and they're going to try to sell you. So as long as you understand that and you are going into it understanding what the purpose is, then go for it. And basically what happened to us is about 4 hours in, we were finally wrapping up, and they gave us our bracelets. Their promise was that you could get these VIP bracelets, which would basically allow you to go to the VIP areas on the property, which were absolutely gorgeous. And as we were walking around, I was pointing them out. I'm like, oh, we can come back here after, and we can go over there in this part of the beach. And there was almost nobody there. And then they also had the public side that everybody could go to. And so I'm like, okay, well, we're going to sacrifice a little bit of time, and we'll get to hang out at this beautiful area for a little while. And needless to say, we get back, we get our wristbands, we go over to the VIP area. Even though it says VIP on the band, it says you're not allowed into any of these areas. You have to go where the general public basically is and hang out with them. And by this time, there's no lawn chairs, there's no cabanas, there's nowhere to sit, there's nothing that you can really do unless you want to sit on the sand and see and find a towel. And so by that point, it's pretty much frustrating. We just called it a loss at that point. We walked back up, gave them our bracelets after about 15 minutes, and went back to our hotel. So just so you have an understanding of what's going on, most of what they're saying is not actually accurate. The numbers didn't make any sense to me. I don't know why anybody would do it. And most of the time I'm helping people get out of these things financially because they make big commitments. They spend tens of thousands of dollars on them and then they can't use them, or it's more expensive than just purchasing direct with some of these companies anyway. So caution from the financial advisor side of me is you might not want to go to them simply because they're going to get a bunch of money out of your pocket that maybe you can, maybe you can't afford anyway. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of perspective of what's going on in the DR. And just to kind of wrap all of this up, I absolutely loved our trip. Not just because we were there for that long, not just because we got married and it was our honeymoon, but almost everything about the Dominican Republic I loved. So that way, if you're looking for a particular hotel or a particular type of hotel and things that you might like to do or see, or the environment or the ambiance if you want it to be more relaxed, we'll talk a little bit more about that in those videos as well. I hope this was helpful for you. Oh, I forgot to tell you to hit the like button. So if you could go ahead and do that if you haven't already. Hopefully you hit the like button earlier, but you probably didn't, so do it now. And also don't forget to subscribe. This will not necessarily be a travel channel, but I did want to give some information about the Dominican Republic since we spent so much time there. And I will catch you guys later.